Speaking of talking about how things could change now, last night gave voters another glimpse into how candidates view our country and what direction they think we should take. But what, if any, impact will the debate have on the actual election? We're joined now by Professor William Howell from the Harris School of Public Policy at the University of Chicago. Professor Howell, thank you once again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Good to be with you. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so hopefully you had time to sleep on it, but we want to start by getting your overall thoughts about what you saw in the debate last night.
Well, it was a rollicking affair. It was combative. There were moments of reflection, but only a few moments. For the most part, both were in attack mode. On points, I think it's pretty clear that Kamala Harris won. Trump couldn't find his voice. He was easily distracted. He fell into a number of traps that were laid by Harris. But boy, it was an intense 2 hours.
Yeah, it was definitely intense. Will the debate, in your opinion, change anyone's mind about either candidate? Maybe change, voters who said they weren't going to vote into voting? And if so, which voters could you see being swayed?
Well, the ones who matter are the ones who are at the center of the spectrum, and that sliver of folks who haven't made up their mind in that handful of competitive states. And I don't think that Trump did himself any favors with this debate. His extreme rhetoric, his inability to modulate his voice or even his sort of temperament I don't think played especially well, except for those people who are already siding with him. Harris, by contrast, was there were moments when she sort of took it to Trump, but also moments where she would reflect upon her own personal history. She was perfectly willing to look at him, whereas he couldn't bear to turn to his left and look at her. In the main, I think that for those who are going to take anything away from this are likely to look more kindly upon Harris than upon Trump.
I think we got a glimpse into how, the tone of the debate at the very beginning when the vice president walked over to the former president and stuck out her hand and almost forced the handshake, right? He seemed reluctant to even shake her hand, which not surprising considering the past, lack of handshake in the past debates. But I digress. Overall, I think Harris made an effort, especially in her closing statements, if you will, to keep things focused on the future, while Trump seemed to focus on the past and present, on the past, criticizing, what the present Biden administration had done wrong, in his opinion. He didn't offer any forward-thinking thoughts. Very different tones and messages even at the end of the debate. Are there any voters in the middle who, might have been swayed by just their closing statements?
Yeah, I think by the end of the debate, people had made up their minds about what the debate meant. And there's drop off over the course of a debate.
Yeah.
You point out correctly, her intention to go over and shake his hand, she played offense all the way through, and he came across at times as angry and defensive, and there were moments too where frankly he was outrageous in talking about how people are immigrants who are coming into the United States are eating other people's pets, as his point about what the immigration problem looks like in the United States.
Can I ask you, I'm sorry, can I ask you one last quick question before I have to say thank you, and that is, do you think, to the point about pets, eating pets, do you think the moderators did an effective enough job of pointing out outright lies or misinformation?
They intervened a couple of times, and offered a correction, but they didn't do so repeatedly, and it was only for a small subset of the misinformation that was put on offer did they actually respond to. And for the most part, I think that they handled things well. They were really modulated in their questions. They gave plenty of time to both candidates. Trump, frankly, had considerably more time.
Yeah.
And I don't think that played to his benefit.
Interesting. Okay, well, Professor William Howell from the Harris School of Public Policy at the University of Chicago, thank you again for joining us, and we hope to keep talking to you as the campaign continues.
Terrific.